Remember when Hollywood icon Rock Hudson was forced into a lavender marriage for fear that his sexuality would tank his career? I do. But before we get into this one, this is the first in a small series of actual lavender marriages that I'm covering in honor of Pride Month. If you want to be a hateful bigot, please do it somewhere else. It will not, under any circumstances, be tolerated here. Okay? It was 1954. RCA sold their first color television. Lord of the Rings was published. Joe and Marilyn got married, and 29-year-old Hollywood icon Rock Hudson met fellow 29-year-old secretary Phyllis Gates. Rock, born Roy, had served in the U.S. Navy during World War II before his movie debut in 1948 in the Warner Brothers film Fighter Squadron. He worked steadily throughout the 1950s until 1954's Magnificent Obsession launched him into mega stardom, and, coincidentally, his sexuality became the media's magnificent obsession. Now, Phyllis had been working as the secretary for Henry Wilson, who was Rock's agent. Henry and most of Hollywood were well aware of Rock's sexuality, but the public was very much in the dark. With the amount of attention that Rock was getting in the media, Henry arranged a meeting between Phyllis and Rock that October. The pair became a couple shortly thereafter. They dated for several months before moving in together. 2 months after Phyllis settled into Rock's home at 9151 Warbler Place, Rock surprised her with a marriage proposal. And while that proposal may have been a surprise to Phyllis, it was not a surprise to Henry. In 1955, Confidential magazine threatened to out Rock with an expose about his secret life. How ironic that it was called Confidential magazine. It was a time when being gay could be career-ending and potentially life-threatening. It was a time when being gay was a crime. Henry knew that he had to silence the rumors, and the best way to do so was for Rock to get married to a lady. And marry he did. Phyllis and Rock were married on November 9th, 1955 in Santa Barbara with 3 friends in attendance. It was a private ceremony arranged by Henry. As the pair headed off to their Jamaican honeymoon, Rock made a toast. "We must always stick together and not let anyone try to pull us apart. Hollywood is full of vicious people who spread rumors. You must never believe any of them." And while the two initially got on like a house on fire, as time wore on, Phyllis became suspicious about Rock's sexuality. Their own intimate life was brief and hurried, and he apparently told her once that all women are dirty. She would often answer phone calls from unknown men who she dismissed as fans, but then Rock would disappear for hours with no explanation. She also claimed that Rock had a temper and that he had hit her twice and even tried to choke her. It didn't help that it was rumored that Rock had an affair while filming A Farewell to Arms. A close friend of Phyllis's not only confirmed the affair, but also the fact that it had been with a man. On January 21st, 1958, she finally confronted him after he had taken a Rorschach test. A Rorschach test is a psychological test where your perception of ink blots are recorded and analyzed, just in case you didn't know. "You told me you saw thousands of butterflies and also snakes. A therapist told me in his analysis that butterflies mean femininity and snakes represent the male, phallus. I'm not condemning you, but it seems that as long as you recognize your problem, you would want to do something about it," Phyllis said. And how do we know what she said? Well, due to her suspicions, she hired a private investigator, Fredo Tash, who bugged the house and recorded the following conversation. Phyllis continued, asking, "You're great speed with me, sexually. Are you that fast with boys?" "Well, it's a physical conjunction," replied Rock. "Boys don't fit, so this is why it lasts longer. Everyone knows that you were picking up boys off the street shortly after we were married and have continued to do so, thinking that being married would cover up for you." "I have never picked up boys on the street," Rock insisted. "I have never picked up boys in a bar, never. I have never picked up any boys other than to give them a ride." Needless to say, Phyllis filed for divorce that year, citing mental cruelty, as it would expedite the whole process. Rock did not contest the divorce. She received alimony payments of $250 a week for 10 years. That would be around $2,700 today. It's also been reported that she received the house on Warbler and that she owned assets in Rock's film production company, 7 Pictures Corporation. Both Phyllis and Rock never remarried, although their lives have been rife with rumors. Rock continued to work and live a life shrouded in mystery. In 1966, he finally fired Henry Wilson, who was known as a deeply unpleasant man who ran a very well-known casting couch. Tony Curtis once said of Henry that everybody who went with him had to intimately express himself to Henry. I'm putting it nicely. And I had to change what he said because I can't say the other thing on this app. Rock's biographer Mark Griffin said that Henry was like the slime that oozed out from under a rock you did not want to turn over. Others said that Henry attempted to use his knowledge of Rock's secrets to threaten him, which is even more messed up considering that Henry himself was gay. But Rock's sexuality wasn't the only secret he kept. He had been diagnosed with AIDS on June 5, 1984, and covertly traveled the world seeking treatment. On July 16, 1985, he appeared with his friend Doris Day at a press conference to announce her new show, Doris Day's Best Friends. People were shocked at how gaunt he looked. Days later, Rock was back on a plane to Paris for more treatments. After collapsing in his hotel room at the Ritz on July 21st, his publicist issued a statement saying that Rock had inoperable liver cancer and denied reports that Rock had AIDS. But then, on July 25th, Rock's French publicist finally confirmed to the public that Rock had indeed been diagnosed with AIDS. On July 30th, he was transported back to LA by stretcher and spent another month undergoing treatment at UCLA Medical Center. By August, he had been released and returned to his home in Beverly Hills for hospice care. That same month, Rock's photo graced the front cover of People magazine, and for the first time after decades of rumors of affairs and even a marriage with friend Jim Nabors, his sexuality was discussed publicly. On October 2nd, 1985, Rock Hudson passed away at home in his sleep. He was 59 years old. His ashes were scattered in a channel between Wilmington and Santa Catalina Island. Shortly before his death, Rock made a $250,000 contribution towards AIDS research, and after his passing, more than $1.8 million of private contributions came in to help support research and care for those living with the disease. That was more than double the amount of donations that had come in a year prior. Joan Rivers was quoted as saying, "2 years ago, when I hosted a benefit for AIDS, I couldn't get one major star to turn out. Rock's admission is a horrendous way to bring AIDS to the attention of the American public, but by doing so, Rock, in his life, has helped millions in the process. What Rock has done takes true courage." I will note that after his death, Rock was sued by his former partner, who claimed that Rock continued to be intimate with him after he received his diagnosis. He sued Rock's estate for intentional infliction of emotional distress, as well as Rock's personal assistant for lying to him about Rock's illness. He was awarded $21.75 million in damages in 1989, which was reduced to $5 million. It was believed that Rock contracted HIV via a blood transfusion he received during his quintuple bypass in 1981. Now, Phyllis went on to become an interior designer and in 1987 published a memoir titled My Husband, Rock Hudson. In her novel, she recounted the breakdown of her marriage. She wrote that on the day that they left the divorce court, as she watched Rock and his lawyer walk away, she thought how relieved they must have felt, as if the world had been lifted from their shoulders. I had the power to destroy Rock, and I didn't use it. To have exposed his other life would have been vicious and vindictive. I faced enough trouble rebuilding my life without bearing that guilt. The day that Phyllis and Rock left the divorce court would be the last time they would ever see each other. There have been stories that Phyllis knew about Rock's sexuality before they were married, that Phyllis herself was a lesbian and that it was a marriage of convenience for both. That Phyllis was allowed to be with women, but insisted that Rock remain faithful to her lest his affairs destroy his career and thus her gravy train. There were accusations that she had even tried to extort money from Rock based on her knowledge of his sexuality. Phyllis passed away on January 4th, 2006 from lung cancer at the age of 80. She insisted until her last days that she had never stopped loving Rock, that he was the love of her life. Lavender marriages were used as a way to meet societal expectations, to conform to a life that was believed to be morally sound during a time when being gay was, well, criminally prosecutable. They were leveraged during a time when stars were forced to adhere to studio mandates that dictated they maintain a heterosexual image. I think it's important to remember the days of lavender marriages and the way that the golden age treated those that skewed from the norm so that we understand the weight of being forced to live an inauthentic life. Also the weight of those accusations. These stigmas still exist today. People are still in danger every day because their love looks different than what some people deem to be normal. I hope the stories that I share with you over this month will serve as a reminder of how far we've come and how far we still have to go. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you liked this one. If you did, please save it and share it with your friends. It really does help. And don't forget to follow me on the gram and the tube of the U just in case. Good day, and may the cult be with you.